today we have Tony with ERS Advisors with us to tell us about his career. Thank you for joining us, Tony.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, can you tell us what it is to be a financial advisor and what it is you do?
I can, and that's actually not the easiest question to answer because I do a lot of different things. But I work as a financial consultant to people in whatever capacity that they need me to. It could be something as simple as some student loan forgiveness questions, or as complicated as setting up a estate or succession planning strategy to get dollars from one family to the next generation, and anything in between. One of the unique things about being a financial planner is that you don't technically need a college degree to do this profession. You just need to get licensed through state and local insurance agencies to be able to do it. However, the disadvantage of that is it's tough to get people to trust you with their financial futures if you don't have a large education background or the diverse education experience to be able to communicate with them in the way that they need to be communicated with. As far as day-to-day duties, I make my own calendar. I kind of can choose to work and not to work. And I always think if I work, I get paid. And if I don't, I don't. I don't get paid days off. I basically run my own business. I can work on weekends. I can work on evenings, at night. And it's one of those things where I love the flexibility, but at the same time, sometimes you get handcuffed to your job a little bit, that you get a lot of people that have needs and need advice or services, and it can take a lot of time out of your schedules. So I guess that describes it a little bit, but each of my days is different. Anything from emails to phone calls to physical meetings to using computer programs and complicated math equations to run compound interest formulas and everything in between.
And you mentioned owning your own business. So do you have a staff? Do you have an office? Tell us what roles are in your office and how that looks.
Yeah, so initially it was just me, a briefcase, and a car. And then as I got busier and busier, I needed more help. So I do have an office in Rochester, and currently it's me. I have another advisor. We actually have a third advisor, but he offices out of his home down by the Winona area. And then we have an assistant that works in our office about 20 to 25 hours a week that helps do some clerical stuff for us. And so, yes, I do have an office, and although right now things are a little different, we're working much more remotely than we ever used to, I still go in there relatively frequently to meet with clients. And usually it's because they need a witness, like maybe they're 70 or 80 years old and want a son or a friend or a sister, brother, something like that there to be able to witness what's happening during the financial planning process.
Gotcha.
And there's a subpart to that question. What was the other part? The office I worked from and
roles in that office, and you said you had an assistant that helped a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
How long have you been in business, and what got you started down that road?
I started doing kind of these sort of things in high school, actually. So my dad's a financial planner. My mom was a teacher, and it was pretty regular at night that he'd have big workshops and we'd have to put together packets and assemble different pieces of information and shove them into folders and try to make them look nice. So you could go to a workshop the next day, and then we'd get a couple of dollars or a candy bar out of it. And we thought that it was amazing that we got that for helping him with that work. And then as I got older into high school and got more proficient at computers, he had me do a lot of building his PowerPoint presentations, a lot of mutual fund research, because I figured out how to use the computer program. I could type so much faster than him that once I learned it, he preferred to have me do it. And so I worked for him in his office a little bit through high school. And I didn't always know that's what I wanted to do. I actually have my pilot's license. I took, I went through that process to become a pilot. And I, took a lot of different classes in college. I originally thought I wanted to be a doctor. And then as I got into college, I just realized I already kind of had such a background in this. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the math. So I decided to pursue this. So about my junior year of college, I switched from between sophomore and junior year from kind of wanting to go down that medical path to deciding to go down the economics and finance path. So, and that's what got me into it. Then I did my internship in college. I didn't want to work for my dad. And I didn't want to compete with him. So I actually worked for a rental car company for 2 years right out of college as a management trainee. And I managed an office in St. Paul, Coon Rapids, Bloomington, and assistant managed the Forest Lake branch. And I learned a lot about people and customer service and why I didn't want to rent cars for the rest of my life. So after doing that for a couple of years, an opportunity opened up down here in Rochester. So this is about 2 hours from, a little over from my parents' home base. So I felt like I was far enough away that I could do this job, work with my father, but not work with my father on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and you just described a great journey for us, and you touched on some skills. Could you tell us what skills a student would need, both technical and soft skills, to work in such a career? You mentioned math. What else is there?
The biggest part, I mean, computers are taking over some of the math. We have to do less and less of that than what we used to do. But the biggest part, I think, is being able to communicate and empathize with people. Because money, especially when we're talking about long-term plans, is a very emotional and personal topic. And once people are able to open up to me about money, it's amazing. They start talking about health and family situations and everything from, you know, child custody issues to divorces and everything in between. And I think it's just they have to like you and trust you, and truly you have to be honest and have integrity, because people could see through that. So the soft skills is you have to really want to help people. You want to put other people in front of yourself at all times. And as far as the hard skills, you have to like doing research, and you have to be able to make decisions. And you have to make peace with the fact that some of the decisions we make on the information we have today. I might look back 10 years from now and say, shoot, that wasn't a good decision, but I didn't have that information to be able to change it. So a lot of people have a hard time with this, because what looks great and seems like a great strategy sometimes doesn't work out, just due to, COVID, for example, right? Things just changed due to no fault of anybody's. And that happens with the market. So it's tough to be blamed for things that are outside of your control. And whenever we go through a recessionary period, there's a lot of people that blame me just because I'm their point of contact.
And could you expand a little more? What does recession mean, and what do you mean market? For kids that are fresh in high school, to give us a little more detail.
The stock market, the easiest way for me to describe it to high school kids is it's the world's largest auction. And if you've ever bid on anything on eBay, if everybody wants the same item, what happens to the price?
It goes up.
So what's happening to Apple and Tesla right now? Everybody wants them, so it's pushing the price up. What happens if nobody wants that item? What do you have to do to sell it? You have to keep lowering the price. And that happens with stocks all the time. Right now, people are selling Kohl's. They don't want to own Kohl's. That doesn't sound like that's going to be a good investment 10 or 15 years from now with everybody ordering their stuff online. But people do want Tesla with their self-driving cars and their space flight and all their computerized technology and artificial intelligence that they're building out. So that's what happens when I'm referring to the market. I'm referring to the stock market and the fluctuation of stocks. And we go through periods of time where people are out of the jobs or people don't have as much work. We went through it in 2008 and 2009 with the banking crisis, where there's a lot of foreclosures. People got in over their heads on their homes. They couldn't afford to make payments, and then they lost their homes. Well, then they're still in debt, even though you lose your home. So you still have to make payments on something you can't live in until you go through the bankruptcy process, which also can be an ugly process. So when we go through recessionary times, there's more of that stuff happening. And so people are depressed in general. And the stock market's down because they're not buying as much stuff. And a big part of our economy is based on consumption and how much stuff we buy. And for buying less stuff, everything goes down. And then retirement accounts, if you have $100,000 and it goes down by 20%, you now have $80,000. And it feels like you've lost $20,000. Even though you haven't, it feels like it. So that's what happens during recessionary times. And during times of expansion, that's what we went through for the last 10 years. Everything's good. Everybody's employed. Unemployment rates are down. Markets are doing well. We're complaining about our phones not charging right. And we're complaining about, people leaving clothes on the floor. We're not complaining about our jobs or our incomes.
Thank you.
That a little bit?
That's a good description. I appreciate that. As we're looking for, you mentioned you didn't need a college degree for this.
Yeah.
What sort of certification or training would somebody need if they wanted to start down this road?
Well, you need a firm to sponsor you. So you need somebody that's willing to hire you. And then you need to get an insurance license, which would be through the state of Minnesota. So it's a pass-fail test. So you have to get 72% to pass. If you get 74%, you studied too hard. And if you get 70%, you didn't study hard enough. It's one of those, you just got to get through it. but you have to learn all the language within the industry just to be able to get through that initial one. And then you can do very basic financial planning, such as, life insurance and just interest fixed things like CDs and bank account type investments. That's not a great description. They're usually annuities, but then you also can get licensed to do things in the market. We call them securities. And that would be a Series 6 and a Series 63 through the state of Minnesota. Or there's other series tests you could take. You could do the 7 as well, which is a harder test, but you're only taking 1 instead of 2. And then for me, I actually took it a step further, and I got something called the Series 65, which allows me to do fee-based financial planning, which is acting as a fiduciary and making sure I put my client's best interest in front of mine. And it's really the way the industry is going. And if people have not become fiduciaries, they're already behind within our business and the practice that we're trying to follow going forward into the future. So I need to get those. I also went back to school, and I needed a college degree to get this. I went back to college and got a certification in financial planning called a CFP, becoming a certified financial planner. It's arguably one of the harder tests that you can take as far as standardized tests go. They compare it to the CPA to become a certified public accountant, which is a 3-day test. This is a 1-day test, but it's more randomized questions. They're not as focused. So that makes it a little bit more difficult, supposedly. But anyway, so I got that, and you kind of, it's like any profession, you have to keep going back to school and educating yourself on the new resources and new tools that come out. Otherwise, you'll be left behind by the other people that are doing that and are continuing to move forward.
Is it typical that a junior or senior in high school might want to start down this road? And if so, what classes in high school should they consider?
Well, personal finance, they should all take that in the business classes just to learn basics about interest rates and some of the, like I said, the language within the industry. But they can't do a lot until you're 18. They pretty much don't let you get securities licensed until you are a legal adult. And even if you wanted to invest and try to do some of your own investing, it's much more difficult to do that until you're 18 unless your parents open an account on your behalf and give you login information to be able to do it. And there are ways to do it. We can set up custodial accounts, and I won't get into the complicated, mechanics of it, but it's actually not that easy to do when you're under the age of 18. Unfortunately, that's just the way the laws are set up.
Sure. If you had a benefit of the job, and you mentioned some flexibility, what other benefits would you say you have with this career?
Well, I like my job. I like doing it. I like being social. I give a lot of group presentations, and I've never had a lot of fear of presenting in public. I know that's kind of one of the largest fears that the average person in America has. And I've never had that for whatever reason. I guess I like being a celebrity up on stage. So I enjoy doing the group presentations. I enjoy meeting with people. I really enjoy getting to know them. Those personal relationships are the things I remember from my job and the stories that people tell me. And I've heard some amazing stories from people that are 22, from people that grew up in the Bronx in LA, or that'd be in New York, sorry, but the ghetto in LA, and people that, I have a client who actually taught Melania Trump's daughter, but one of the Trump girl, not Melania, the daughter.
Ivanka?
Yeah, that actually taught her when she was in first grade because they were living in New York at the time, and she was teaching at a parochial school. So, I mean, it's really cool, like all the people I meet and the stories I hear, and I really do enjoy that. So those are the parts of my job I think that I like the most. It's just the people and getting to know people and being out there and developing relationships. Yeah.
If you had one piece of advice to give to high school students watching this today, what would that piece of advice be?
Learn about money early. Our TV and our consumer culture and pretty much everything that's out there teaches us how to spend money. How when we walk out of Target, they say, hey, you saved $22 today. Well, you didn't. You spent $80, right? Sure, you could have spent more, but you didn't actually save it until it goes into your bank account. And I think breaking out of that mental state that we're kind of pre-programmed into, to being disciplined with your money, not buying something because you feel like it. And that's a big thing. Like I said, money's emotional, and there's that retail therapy component to it. You see somebody else with a new pair of boots and you want to go buy them because it makes you feel better. But is it really a smart decision? You know, one of my best friends, I love him to death, but he impulse buys pickup trucks all the time. And these are very expensive items that have $1,000 a month payments on these things, versus the trucks that I buy. I spend a year researching and trying to find out what's a good value and keep hunting for it until I find one that meets the parameters I'm looking for within my budget. I go from the other way. What can I afford? And then I start looking for the vehicles, as opposed to, I want that vehicle, I'll figure out how to afford it later. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I could give anybody in America, is just to know where your money goes. Know how much you're spending every month on a cup of coffee or on gas for your car. And it's kind of annoying to keep track of it, but once you get used to it, it becomes automatic, and then you'll set yourself up for success no matter what direction you end up going and no matter what your career path is, because you'll be smart with your money and able to budget and able to discipline and able to save correctly.
Great advice. Thanks much, Tony. As we close today, if a student were really interested in this career and wanted to reach out, what method would you prefer?
I'll probably just go to our website and send me an email would be the best method now. I can do some job shadowing depending on the people I'm meeting and the circumstances around it. I should rephrase that. I used to be able to do some job shadowing. I may not be able to do that anymore, but I have had high school kids travel around with me in the past. It's my name, Tony Schutte at efsadvisors.com. And the website is www.efsadvisors.com. We have about 40 different advisors spread throughout the state, so you can use the drop-down menu to search for an advisor and look for my name, and it'll give you all my contact info.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Yep, thank you very much.